The blast would hit Deku straight on, as he would have most of his outfit destroyed from the explosion, and he would smirk, holding onto Bakugo's arm, which would be in, like arm's reach from him, as he would grab Bakugo, placing him in a sort of armbar mid-air, as he would punch Bakugo in the face, and Bakugo would try to return an explosion to, pay him back for that. But Deku just wasn't having it. He would grab onto Bakugo's arm, the other one, right? And now both of them are grabbed up, putting them both in an armbar, as he would proceed to then spin in the air and pile drive this man straight into the arena. I mean, Bakugo genuinely would be like knocked out, getting a straight up concussion, as Bakugo's head would leave a crater in the stage, and Deku would just walk off as he would spit some blood on the floor, saying, "Congratulations on second place." As from here, we would end up pretty much just getting as from here, we would end up pretty much just getting the medal stuff happening, where Deku would be crowned as first, Bakugo would be crowned as second, being very angry at Deku, so he had to be put on restraints, and everybody would just be watching, cheering the name of Izuku, as this dude just seems like an awesome person, like he's gonna be a great hero. And Mirko would just be grinning, watching from her, her TV, as from here, she would basically say that it's about time she goes out to beat up some people okay, I clearly messed it up. Mirko would, okay, picture it like this. Mirko's at her house, she just watched Deku, obviously go crazy in the sports festival, and she would just click the remote, turning the TV off, and she would have a huge grin on her face and just be like, "I'm itching to kick some butt," as she would go out for some hero patrol, and she would do just that. So from here, we kind of go into Deku's point of view, as we would flash forward to the hero internship periods, which obviously all begins with the hero name and stuff like that. And you obviously can't go wrong with the name Black Panther. I mean, seriously, that is such a cool name. It differentiates him from his mother, and it kind of adds to that Wakandan legacy. Plus, Deku, once he heard the name that his father had, he just had to take that thing. It was awesome. Some people in the classroom would be like, "Whoa, that name, it's awesome." And Aizawa, hearing this would be like, "It sure is. There used to be a hero called the Black Panther a while ago. You guys probably haven't heard of him because a lot of his activities were in the nighttime, so he's much like me." And then they would all be like, "Really? There used to be a hero just like that?" With Aizawa saying, "Yeah, the two are probably related in some sort of way, shape, or form." As the class would just look at him and be like, "Are you kidding me? Your parents are both pro heroes?" As Deku would say, "Well, my dad was a pro hero. That was before he died." As they would all kind of be quiet, and Deku would say, "Nah, I don't care. I never met the guy." Just kind of in his mind thinking, "Well, I kind of did," because he met him in the afterlife thingy-majigger that the Black Panther universe has as a thing. As from here, Deku would obviously get an internship message from his mother, and it's like, dude, he's absolutely not gonna pass up the chance to go out and do what he's been wanting to do since he was a kid. Mirko has been training him all his life, but she's never taken him out on a hero patrol, and they've always done this sort of 1v1 training where she would just kick the life out of this kid. That's why he can take so much damage, because she raised him up like she was a man, bro. It's crazy. This man Deku did not need no male role models in his life. He had his mom, and it's just dude, it's pretty funny. But yeah, upon their little internship, they would pretty much just go on a bunch of hero patrols, and eventually, after taking out a huge group of thug villains or whatever whatever you would want to call it, these dudes were moving weapons and moving heavy substances and stuff like that, and they just absolutely wrecked them. So what pretty much ends up taking place is that after defeating them, Deku would punch one in the head and leave him just there on the ground, as he would turn towards his mom and say that this is getting so boring, saying that these guys are weak. As Mirko would say, yeah, she's been itching for a good fight, which is why they're going to be going to Hosu City. As Deku would smirk, saying, "Isn't that where the hero killer is?" And she would say, "Sure is, kid. You better make sure you find him first, because if I get my hands on him, you're not getting a single punch in." As from here, the both of them would make their way there on this private jet that would go so fast. And once they would arrive there, it would be like the night before the Nomu incident, meaning that at this point, Shigaraki still was only 2 hours away from trying to recruit Stain and stuff like that. But unfortunately for Stain, he would end up being found by the heroes before that could happen. And mind you, this is also before the Nomu. Wait, I already said that. Okay. Yeah. they would spend the entire time just searching for Stain the second that they touched ground, as Mirko would actually be the one that actually would find Stain first, and she would begin to fight this dude on the spot, kicking Stain into a wall before he even had time to react, as she would catch him off guard and she would rush back in once more, trying to finish the job, thinking this dude's so weak. As suddenly, Stain would actually dodge out of the way right in the nick of time, as he would slash at Mirko's leg, which was fully extended and stuck in the wall, and he would nick her just enough to get one small tiny drop of blood, as he would have a little smile on his face, and Mirko would say, "You kidding me? That's pretty weak, and here you are calling yourself the hero killer." But Stain would just look at her and say, "That's exactly what I intend to do," as he would go to lick the blade, and just moments before he could actually do it, Deku, using his invisibility power that he has from his Black Panther suit obviously, would appear, kicking Stain in the ribs, shattering them, as Stain would go tumbling straight into one of the walls, leaving an imprint on it, with Deku turning towards his mother saying, "So, I wouldn't get a shot in, would I?" And she would say that was a cheap shot. As from here, Stain would slowly begin to get out of there as the rubble would start hitting the ground, and Mirko and Deku would both be on alert, turning towards the direction of Stain, as he would release all of his bloodlust and murderous intent. But surprisingly enough, this would literally just not affect either of them, since they look at him with their own murderous aura, and you would just see this cool panel of Deku and Mirko Black Panther as they would stare down at Stain and land a dual I was about to say father and son kick, but no, mother and son kick, which would absolutely obliterate Stain. I mean, they would shatter the remainder of his ribs and send him crashing straight into one of the walls. I mean, it's genuinely overkill. So this means that Stain never meets with Shigaraki, he never has the Hosu incident go down, and so this means that we never get the whole interaction between Shigaraki and Deku at the mall, which, if it happened in this timeline, Shigaraki was probably gonna straight up die for trying to tell Deku that he was gonna kill him. Like, bro, Deku would have straight up destroyed this man at the mall. But that aside, even if this wasn't the case, Mirio would have actually been there and been way more than enough to stop him. And the reason that I say Mirio would have been present is due to the fact that he would receive one for all in this timeline. Meaning that even though this entire time I've been hyping up Deku, Mirko, and all of these really cool interactions that I've had, this whole thing is just not him being like the strongest in the verse. He's actually going to be playing second fiddle to Mirio in this timeline, just due to the fact that Deku will not be able to touch him. Mirio's going to be having danger sense, and like, dude, Mirio's just going to be way too busted to even hope to beat by any single character in the My Hero Academia universe. That said though, we now jump into Deku returning to school, as he would be taking part in the hero race rescue to, pretty much save All Might in their training, but obviously he would win, being incredibly fast due to his mother's years of training and the added enhancements that he received from the Black Panther flower that he pretty much digested. This means that he doesn't really create the shoot style, and instead he has sort of a weird hybrid of Mirko and the shoot style and his father's style, so it's just kind of weird and it's not called that at all. But that does mean that Deku's practically ready for anything that this world has to throw at him, which is a really good thing because now Deku actually has to go face to face with All Might alongside Bakugo for the final exam. And the way that I can see this whole thing playing out is just Deku and Bakugo initially kind of like having this thing against each other, as once All Might would arrive and he would hit Bakugo, sending him flying, Deku would rush in towards the direction of All Might, throwing a kick which All Might would block, but it would send him flying back, with All Might looking up, being stunned to see that Deku at this point was practically like actually dealing damage to him, and he didn't expect this to happen. But All Might would be like, "So, you're a lot stronger than I thought, young man." As from here, Deku would say, "You got no idea." But Bakugo out of nowhere would come shooting in with his own explosion, being like, "Howitzer impact!" And Deku would be like, "Come on, Bakugo, get out of my way." And Bakugo just like trying to fight, but he would get absolutely destroyed by All Might. But Deku coming in, not wanting to see this happen, to his teammate, because, right now the circumstances are that they're both teammates. Deku would come in, saving Bakugo and putting him down, as he would say, "Look, clearly you want to help me fight this guy. I'm gonna need you to land your strongest attack once I get him weakened. And the best thing that we can do is this. Hand me one of your gauntlets. And Bakugo would do so. As from here, he would just kind of like look at Deku, having this respect for him, because it's like, he's not going to be like, shut up, weakling, or be quiet, nerd, because like, now it's proven that Bakugo's just weaker than him. So Bakugo sort of has to give him his flowers and kind of listen to him, right? And, you know, Bakugo didn't hear, you know, Deku kind of like, you know, hold it over him that he destroyed him in this you know, exam thingamajigger. So Bakugo isn't really like hating Deku in this timeline. And so what would pretty much end up taking place is that they would rush back in towards All Might, and Deku would land a flurry of kicks and slash attacks using his claws, which would actually hurt All Might pretty badly. As from here, Deku using his gauntlet would pull the pin and it would shoot straight in the face of All Might, with All Might barely having any time to block it with his hand, meaning that most of the damage was sort of negated. But he wasn't expecting Bakugo to come in and land a howitzer impact right at his damaged area, sending All Might flying through a building, as Deku from here would go to stand on top of All Might and just land the finishing blow, punching him in the head, at least is what it would look like to everybody, before, you know, Deku would pull back and just say, I'll let you have this for now, number one. As from here, he would just sort of walk off, and Bakugo and Deku would cross the finish line as the feed would have pretty much cut off, like them not wanting to see what actually happened, you know, saying that the camera got messed up or something like that. But right after this would happen, it would be revealed that All Might would actually be in his Small Might form, and Deku only actually held back because he saw that happen. Which means that now All Might sort of has to explain what happened with his quirk and Mirio and all this stuff, and Deku finds out about All for One and All for One, or I mean One for All and All for One, right? So Deku kind of figures out about, you know, like the main villain of the series, but regardless of that information is not really going to be mattering here. And so we're able to just straight up jump into the Forest training camp, which, funny enough, is actually going to be sort of an interesting arc this time around, just due to the nature of, you know, the villains attacking, followed by the All for One situation and the Camino Ward incident, right? So what I actually want to have happen here is a combination of a couple of things. Number one, Deku's whole vibe and the things that he's going to be doing and his character moments that take place here are going to be completely replaced with like really cool aura boosting moments, right? Because from the moment that Deku arrives and finds out that they're going to be having to face monsters in the forest just to get to their training camp, Deku would have this huge grin on his face as he thinks to himself that these things not being human, he's free to go fully all out on these things and just go for killing blows, like super just like devastating attacks. And that's exactly what Deku would do, clearing it and actually staying in the forest, as everybody else would have cleared a straight path to arrive to the camp. But Deku just didn't leave until every single one of those monsters was taken out, and he would use his heightened senses to actually take care of this, alongside with his Black Panther costume, which has thermal vision. So he would be able to track down each and every single one of those monsters and take them out, arriving to the camp about 3 hours later, covered in sweat and just not like looking half tired, as Deku would turn towards Mandalay, or whoever it was that actually formed the monsters, and say, hey, tomorrow make sure you double the amount of monsters and make them twice as large. I'd hardly consider that training. Didn't even push me past my limits or anything. As from here, Mandalay would look at Deku and would just be like, I have been looking for a mate, as you know, she's like is like trying to like go after Deku. This is just obviously a joke, but here the other like wild like member would actually grab her and be like, chill out. As from here, what would pretty much end up taking place is that they would just go on to eat, and the following day Deku would just destroy a bunch of mud monsters. As the day after that, Deku would actually train by taking on the wild pussycats as a group, and he would actually destroy them, which is just like absolutely insane. Using his invisibility, he would take out the girl who could actually track him first, going on to take out the other one with the monsters, and finally just destroying the buff dude by landing a blow to his side, which would actually shatter 2 of his rib cages, which just like kind of left them in a stage of like, they don't want to train with Deku anymore. So he practically just trained with a bunch of monsters that entire time, becoming much more animalistic and ruthless in his fighting style. As speaking of animalistic and ruthless, would you guys want to see a Wolverine Deku sort of thing going on? Because I really think that it would be super cool if I did like a Wolverine Deku, especially with the success of the Deadpool movie. Or would you guys rather see like an immortal Naruto or something like that? You get what I'm saying? But But yeah, just let me know down below in the comments what you guys would like to see, and I will be sure to drop that as soon as possible. But yeah, obviously most of you guys are probably going to hear this with the movie version of this and not like the third part of this, but you know, I digress. Just drop down in the comments what you guys think. And also, don't forget to leave a like. If you made it to this part of the video, you better leave a like, because you know it's going to help me out a lot, and you know, I'm kind of asking really nicely, so leave a like or I will eat your leftovers. Okay, that's all I'm gonna say. I don't make the rules, I just make the rules. But continuing forward with the training, what would pretty much end up happening is that Deku would just show off to the class that he is just that guy, and eventually the nighttime would come around when the villains would finally arrive trying to, well, kidnap Bakugo, but they would fail miserably, and this is due to two factors. Number one, this Deku is way more powerful than the one who faced off against Muscular, and would be at around that same level of strength of a high-end Nomu. Like, he is very busted. So while Muscular would be a bit of trouble just due to the nature of his muscle fibers getting in the way, Deku, without holding back, would actually be able to land like a thunderous blow on Muscular, which would leave him groggy because he like would hit him in the arm, and it would cause like vibrations to go through all of Muscular, which would really affect him. And from here, Muscular would try to land blow after blow on Deku, but Deku would turn invisible and would go on to like pretty much put his fingers and shove them into Muscular's eye, blinding him temporarily, as Deku from here jumps up into the air, lighting his paws on fire as he would slash at Muscular's chest, leaving an X-shaped 5-finger gash on each side, with Koda watching Deku just absolutely dismantle the dude responsible for killing his parents. Deku would finally lunge at the wall as he uses the wall to jump towards Muscular, using that like double jump momentum to land a kick straight at the direction of Muscular's like stomach area, sending Muscular flying off the cliff as he'd be like, "I'll get you for them," like landing on the ground, just absolutely dealing so much damage, with Muscular practically being at like a near death state, not being able to see, not being able to soften the impact or anything. Muscular even had a couple of branches go through some of his body parts, so this dude is like bleeding out blind. The dude, like Black Panther Deku, is like ruthless, I can't even lie. So right after this, Deku would take Koda to Aizawa, and following this, he would actually run into Tokiyami, rushing back into the forest to help out his classmates, as with doing this, he would have actually ended up noticing that Tokiyami was just going crazy, not being able to control Dark Shadow, as Deku would once again, using his suit upgrade, would actually cover his hands in flames as he would rush Dark Shadow, landing vicious blow after vicious blow, calming Dark Shadow just enough, like within 1% enough for Tokiyami to actually control him, which eventually would lead to Bakugo and Todoroki, who would be encountered by the team as they would take out the guy with like the teeth. I think his name is Moonfish, so they're able to take him out, and eventually we would end up getting the moment in which Mr. Compress would kidnap Bakugo and Tokiyami. But Deku's senses instantly let him know that he was there, and Deku was just not gonna let him take him without knowing what his next move was gonna be. So Deku would act like he had no idea what was going on, and he wouldn't tell any of his classmates, but Deku would just slip away chasing after Mr. Compress, as eventually Mr. Compress would end up arriving towards the direction of where the other villains were, and Deku would actually enter the portal alongside every single other member, as Deku would say, "So, this is your little hideout?" But from here, flames from Dabi would come shooting towards the direction of Deku, as his mask, the nanotechnology, would cover his face, and Deku would just turning towards Dabi say, "That wasn't very smart." Rushing towards his direction, as the flames just would do nothing, like they would just serve to amp Deku's suit up, as he would yell out, "Bakugo, help me kill these nobodies!" As Bakugo and Deku would both have these grins on their faces, as Bakugo lunges towards Kurogiri, slamming a barrage of explosions at his like area, as you know, Kurogiri was unable to teleport any of them out of there, and Deku would land a blow on Dabi, like straight up just slashing his arm, like dang near cutting it in half, like it's only connected by the bone, but a bunch of flesh would be exposed, as he would say, let's calm down, as, you know, he would just go on to land more blows, and eventually he would turn towards Spinner, just landing a spin kick. Spinner drops to the ground, and Deku would fall on him, landing an elbow on his face, with Deku spinning on the ground, rushing towards Mr. Compress and kicking him in the face, shattering his nose and his mask, as Mr. Compress would be knocked out. And Deku would tag Bakugo's arm, as Bakugo would then let loose on Shigaraki, blasting a barrage of explosions on him, with Shigaraki not being able to do a thing about this, with Bakugo taking out the remainder members of the League of Villains, and Deku and Bakugo just standing over the rest of them, as Deku would he just has this thing telling him that he cannot let Kurogiri live. If this dude lives, there's a chance that they could escape. So Deku would actually just end up crushing the entire thing that is Kurogiri's real weak spot, and the smoke that would come out of Kurogiri would just start dissipating, with Bakugo turning towards Deku and realizing that he straight up killed that dude. Bakugo would look at him and say, "Hey, that's not what we do as heroes, is it?" With Deku saying, "Just trust me, I had a bad feeling about him." As from here, a black sludge portal would end up arriving, and none other than All For One would end up stepping out of that sludge portal, as he would slow clap at their direction, telling them that they did a phenomenal job taking out his protege and his friends. As from here, Deku's danger senses, his natural instincts would just be going off the charts, as he instantly lunges towards the direction of All For One with all his strength, going to land his most powerful kick, but a barrier would end up being placed in front of him, with All For One saying, "Calm down," and the barrier would actually shatter, with All For One looking at the leg of Deku and having to pretty much use a hardening ability on his arm, as he would harden it, but still it would send All For One flying back a bit, as All For One would think to himself that that kick probably would have shattered his arm and rib cage if he hadn't used that barrier and then used that hardening quirk on top of that. That kick was absolutely insane. He would be on high alert, and instantly he would shoot tendrils at Deku, which he would easily dodge, but All For One, realizing that he's going to be having to face off against him and this kid, would actually use Bakugo to his advantage, shooting tendrils at Bakugo's direction, which Bakugo would actually be able to barely dodge out of the way, as more would be shot at him, but Deku would lunge in the way, destroying them before they could actually make contact with Bakugo, as he would look to Bakugo's direction and tell him to stay out of this fight. But with Bakugo being like, "I can't do that, Deku," and Deku just turning towards him saying, "You have to, this dude will kill you, any mistake, and we die here." As from here, Bakugo would sort of understand the gravity of this situation, and Deku turning towards All For One would say, "So, you're All For One, aren't you?" With All For One saying, "Looks like Toshinori told you about me." And Deku would say, "Something like that. I can't believe that I get to be the one that actually puts you out of your misery." With All For One saying, "So, you want to kill me the same way you killed him over there?" With him saying, "That's not very hero-like." And Deku saying that sometimes you gotta kill some villains in order to be a real hero. With All For One saying, "That's something even All Might wasn't able to do. What makes you think you will?" And Deku just says, "Because I'm not All Might, I'm better!" Rushing towards the direction of All For One, as he instantly turns invisible, and All For One would look around trying to see if he can see Deku, but realizing that his footsteps are coming closer and closer, All For One would end up using a quirk, an airwave quirk that would shoot air towards every direction, just destroying everything, sending Deku flying back, as his suit would start to be covered in purple just due to the kinetic energy that he would be storing within himself, and Deku would rush in again and again and again and again, but All For One would dang near make it impossible for Deku to close the distance and to actually go in for a full throttle punch, until All For One starts charging a bunch of quirks into one arm and says, "Come on then, let's see just how strong you are." With Deku lunging in with the strongest kick and All For One throwing this insanely powerful blow, they would practically stalemate. But right as they're pushing forward as much as they can, Bakugo shoots an AP shot at the direction of All For One, throwing him off slightly, leading to Deku kicking him and landing a more successful blow on him. As from here, Deku would be able to deal some damage to All For One, but after that happens, All For One would stop playing around, realizing that Deku is a very serious threat, would start using his more like instant kill quirks, right? Trying to land blows on Deku, which would actually work, and Deku would try to get in close enough to use his kinetic energy on All For One, but it would backfire on him as Deku would be sent flying, and Bakugo would come trying to help as well, as the tendril would pierce Bakugo's stomach, leaving him out of the fight permanently, with Deku yelling out, "Bakugo, I told you to stay out of the way!" But a tendril would actually come shooting towards Deku, piercing his shoulder, with Deku getting angry at that and grabbing the tendril as he snaps it, and from here, like a piece of pasta, dude, he literally snaps it like that, and then he would turn towards All For One as he would say, "I'm done playing around." And so Deku would just tear off the pieces of suit that are already like starting to be getting destroyed, as you know, Deku would just lunge in again and again and again, but All For One was making it so difficult. And while Deku was nicking All For One and landing some damage dealing blows, All For One was landing more blows on Deku, and it was starting to show that Deku was just a bad matchup facing off against All For One, as eventually Deku would finally be able to land a blow thanks to the fact that Bakugo would actually end up shooting one final explosion from the ground that would create a massive amount of dust to rise up. And because All For One doesn't have some quirk that allows him to like see everything around him, Deku would be able to use his abilities of training with his mom and like just these heightened senses of just knowing how to sneak up on people. Deku would do it so unbelievably fast as he would stab his arm into All For One's chest, just crushing his heart. As Deku from here would see All For One just land on the ground, as he would roar out a war cry, and Deku would grab onto Bakugo's body as that entire area was decimated. And you know, a bunch of choppers and heroes would end up arriving on the scene, as Bakugo would instantly be rushed to the hospital, and Deku would as well, realizing that he had taken a lot, and I mean a lot of damage, which means that those two were actually out of the count for the provisional license exam arc, because you know, honestly, I don't want to cover it. But right after that, we would actually end up having a very essential part of the story play out, which is Deku's eventual meeting of the big three: Mirio, Nejire, and Tomikichi? I don't know what this dude's name is. The dude that can basically turn parts of his body into like an animal and stuff like that. And Mirio, being his usual self, wanting to teach the students from his experience and what he's learned from training with One For All and all of those things, would actually challenge the entire classroom to a fight. With Deku, you know, cockily thinking that, you know, he took out All For One. There's no way this kid's gonna be stronger than that. And so Deku rushes in, as Mirio would actually end up countering Deku, or seemingly, but Deku's blow would straight up just go through his body, with Deku realizing that this dude, as Mirio just disappears, and next thing he knows, two fingers would come flying in towards Deku's face, as a punch would come straight to his stomach, mind you, powered by One For All, that would send Deku flying, as Deku would land on the ground coughing out some like blood, and he would turn towards Mirio just saying, "Alright then," turning invisible to try to land a blow on Mirio, but Mirio's danger sense would alert him of Deku's presence, and he would land an elbow on the stomach of Deku, as Deku would be sent flying against, but grabbing him with Black Whip, Mirio would shoot him into the air as he would come flying in once more, landing a kick straight to Deku's stomach once more. Well, not a kick once more, but like landing another blow once more to his stomach area, right? This time, Deku would straight up throw up mid-air as Mirio phases through that so it doesn't actually hit him, and Deku falls to the ground, waking up like a minute later, realizing that he just got destroyed. Like, he didn't lose, he was massacred. And Deku finally gets a feeling of what it was like to train with his mother back in the days, as he would wake up and just want to train and fight him over and over and over again until he can finally beat him. As eventually, due to this, he would end up meeting with Mirio once again, challenging him to a fight, as Mirio would say before that, "How would you like to actually intern with us?" You know, being like, you know, like, you can come with me and you can like see, you know, how I fight, you can shadow me and I can teach you a thing or two. And Deku, you know, having massive respect for Mirio after that fight, he would just be like, "Dude, I'm game, like, I'm ready, like, let's do it," you know what I mean? And we pretty much just end up getting this like really cool you know, moments of Mirio and Deku hanging out, and they're actually like, they become tight fast, as right after this, Deku would go to meet Sir Nide, but because of the fact that Deku doesn't have one for all in this timeline, Sir Nide is like not whining about Deku, you know, having one for all or any of those things, so he just instantly accepts him, and so they're able to just straight away go on a hero patrol, where Deku would actually slightly be informed of the fact that they're on the lookout for a villain named Overhaul, and Mirio would actually be explaining this on their walk, as eventually Deku would have a little girl bump into him and she just looks terrified. Deku, seeing the look in her eyes, would then turn towards the direction of the alleyway as Deku sees Night-Eye, or not Night-Eye, but he sees Overhaul, and Deku just like his senses once again just start like saying like this dude is dangerous, you know what I mean? As Deku, like turning towards the forest, has this look in his eyes, with Mirio looking towards Deku being like, don't do it, like we have to take out the whole operation, not just him, like just giving him this look, like being like, we'll save her, like we will, just like not now. But Deku just could not contain himself. He would lunge towards the direction of Overhaul with you know, like a scratch attack, as he would straight up claw at Overhaul's face, blinding him in one eye, as Overhaul would instinctively react by grabbing onto Deku's arm and just disintegrating the whole thing. But before that could actually happen and it could all disappear, Deku straight up cuts it off and just goes in for a kick at the direction of Overhaul. But before the kick could actually land, Mirio would just be like, come on, like seriously, as he blitzes in, like going right through Deku's body and uppercutting Overhaul straight into the sky, as using Black Whip, he would tie Overhaul up and slam him into the ground in like such a cool like Spider-Man-like move, with Deku just looking at Mirio being like, I had that, and Mirio just being like, did you? Look at your arm. As Deku would say, it's a flesh wound, Mirio, get over it. There was no way that I was gonna let that girl go through another day of pain, even if it cost me my life. As Mirio, hearing that, would realize that like, he's right, like he was willing to let a little girl go back into that horrible world of torture just so that they could like capture one more person. Like, dude, like no, that's pathetic, like take them all out or nothing. And Deku was willing to do what it took. So Deku loses his arm, and that means that he gets like a cybernetic one, but due to the nature of Aries' quirk, she would easily be able to restore it one day. But due to this, there is pretty much no more threat in the My Hero Academia story, and now for the following 2 years, Deku would just pretty much train at the at UA High, eventually going on to become a hero. But because we don't exactly know what really happens after that, it's all mostly just speculation. So instead of like in the original Deku losing his quirk and stuff like that, Deku now gets to go and become a pro hero and just be that guy, like being the #2 hero in the world, right? As let's see, who should Deku be shipped with? I really don't care. Like honestly, in this timeline, Deku's not there for all the ship stuff or any of that stuff, so I really don't care about that. And that pretty much just ends up marking the conclusion of what if Deku was the Black Panther. Let me know if you guys enjoyed this video down below in the comments. Make sure to report your attendance, seeing as a bunch of comments in the help the algorithm just be like, oh, this dude's video is like really good, he has a lot of engagement. So do your boy a favor if you guys went on to enjoy this one, and check out a bunch more of my other My Hero Academia content. I have so many what ifs, and I have what if Deku was Zoom coming soon, so be on the lookout for that. Stay posted in my community tab, and with all that out of the way, ladies and gentlemen, have yourselves a wonderful day. Peace.